Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to this week's webinar. My name is Darren Wynn. I'll introduce myself in just a second. Today we're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be taking quite a top level view of it and how it integrates into business, what stage you might be at the moment, some of the pitfalls that we see businesses often fall into. So some of these things may resonate with you, and then how to overcome those. And then once we go through the sort of 5 stages a business can be at, I'll then talk through some other aspects which I've been thinking about over the last sort of year, and certainly over the last few weeks as I've been putting this presentation together. So we'll be able to go through that too. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So any questions, like I say, you can pop them in the chat. This is the running order for today. We'll go through part 1 first, which is the 5 stages. So I just ran a poll and everyone kind of gave an indication of where they are. So we'll go through those 5 stages of just dabbling, so just messing around with AI, the awakening stage, starting to get more into strategic implementation of AI, full integration into the business, and transformation. So what do all those stages mean? What are some of the pitfalls that people fall into that either they encounter when they get to that stage, or that stops them from moving on to the further stages and full integration into the business. Then we'll go through some principles. We'll talk about guardrails and foundations. We'll talk a bit about people, because people sit at the center of all of this, either from an adoption framework, or there may be fears out there about what AI could mean for specific roles or the culture of the business. And then some final thoughts on where to go next and where to get started. I'm going to throw an offer up at the end as well. We run a Thursday AI Club, which we have been running for about 2 months now. The reason why we did the Thursday AI Club was really to bring people together to talk about AI, share ideas, share new projects that they may be working on. Some of the stuff that we've talked about today, there just needs to be a community, really, we feel, where people can get together and just chat. So those AI clubs we run every other Thursday, kind of leapfrogging the webinars that we do. We'll do a bit of a presentation. We'll share some thoughts. So there'll be presentations around how to expand your marketing through the use of agentic solutions. How do we do better prompting? How do we do vibe coding? What does that mean? Sessions on Claude Code. Subject areas. I can see someone's come on. Oh, hi, Anish. I thought it was someone coming to support me, but no such luck. So my name's Darren. I have been in marketing for close to 16, 17 years now. I started at Annika in 2010. I started in advertising, then went across to operations, and then became managing director. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I started getting involved with AI. I was asking too much of it at the time. I saw some benefit of using AI, and as I'm going to talk about later, I kind of was of the impression that it was a superpower that could do absolutely everything. And so I started chucking all sorts of operational tasks at it, trying to get it to answer questions for me. And some things it did quite well, enough for me to think that this was sort of going somewhere, but really too much for it to be capable of at that time. And anyone that's been using AI for any period of time can see the exponential growth in productivity that AI is able to do for us. 4 years ago, you could chuck an Excel sheet full of data at ChatGPT and it would get totally confused. You'd probably get confused at some of the simplest things, like how to handle a merged cell, how to read a sheet and understand the data. It just wasn't that good at that stage. Whereas now we've got these solutions through Claude Code, Gemini is getting better, ChatGPT is okay at it, where you're able to throw complex problems at these LLMs and get really advanced analysis and products out of it again. So it's come on massively. which is really nice to see because I could see the potential early on, but it just wasn't able to cope with it at the time. And we're reaching a point now at Anika where we're starting to see that this isn't going anywhere. We're kind of seeing it as a sort of internet all over again. It's going to revolutionize a lot. It's still not perfect. It's still not a superpower, but every time we use it, it gets a little bit better. So it's certainly got the legs to shake up quite a few things. So I am now involved with integrating AI into our business. With my operations background, that can be quite handy, that sort of experience in understanding systems and processes, and then being able to break those processes down to understand how we can properly integrate AI into it. And then I also work with various different clients to discuss what stage in the AI roadmap are they currently at, what questions have they asked, are they ready to adopt AI properly, and then create a roadmap for them so they can actually adopt AI fully. And then I also co-host the AI Club on a Thursday. I release, if you're a member of that, or if you're planning to become a member of that, we release weekly videos as well, talking around projects and things that we're working on. So it's a really good community that we're building there. Anyone that knows Anika Digital knows we are foundationally a digital marketing agency. So we've been doing digital marketing for 20 years now, I think. What happened was about 4 years ago, myself and Anne, the founder of Anika, we started dabbling with, which is the first stage, AI, trying it out. We saw the power of it. And as things started to progress, we started to build AI solutions alongside Anika, which have now been built out into full sort of tools and systems, which we then sell alongside marketing services to clients. Those could be various different marketing tools. We've even got a full agentic solution for businesses, which we can deploy into a business as well. So we've come a really long way from where we started. We've spoken to over 4,000 people about AI. It's been really interesting speaking to people because up until, I would say, and this is personal experience, but up until end of 2025, really a lot of people were in wait and see mode. They weren't ready quite yet to adopt AI. I think maybe some of those people saw through it a bit better than maybe we did. We were kind of blinded by its potential, and thought it needed a bit more time to develop before they adopted it. Other people have been on this and all over it for ages, but it wasn't until 2026 really that everyone's kind of woken up, and now the conversations that we have, everyone's ready to adopt it. They've got a bit more budget behind them to do something with AI because they know it's now not going anywhere, and it's at that point where they can have a real impact in the business. We've got 30 clients, and we have, this is a bit misleading, 25 AI agents. I mean, we have over 250, closing in on 300 skills that we've developed through various different LLM solutions. We've got all sorts going on at the moment. We've got full agentic solutions built into the business. We've also got skills which tie into things like Claude and Claude Code, building solutions as well. So we've got loads of stuff in the works at the moment. This is how the business is split, just for everyone's context. So we've got Anika Digital, AI-powered marketing, growth solutions. So if you're planning to grow your business and you're looking for advice and some consultancy around how to get to that next stage with your advertising, Anika Digital will be able to talk to you about any of these channels plus more, figure out what is going to be best for you and start promoting your business to get you to that next level of growth. And then we've got Anika AI and Insights. This is where we talk about AI strategy, we talk about solutions, how to integrate AI. We've also got SaaS and product development going on as well through various different platforms. We've got Armadillo Analytics, which is pretty much ready to go now. A full package reporting system, so you can see every aspect of your business's data all in one system. We've got secretagents.ai, which is still live and has a couple of different agents in there. I think there's about 50 agents, which you can try and use now, which do handle a range of tasks. And then we've got a full, like I said, a full SaaS solution for business, which includes agents trained on and dedicated to specific businesses that are able to complete certain tasks. It's like a full, we call it AI OS, so a full AI operating system, which we're just in the process of launching at the moment. So two slides really on numbers. The adoption race has started. It's gathering pace now. Like I say, 2026 was when businesses really started to pick up pace and really start to ask questions around adopting AI into their businesses. 58% of small firms are now using generative AI. That is up on last year, so the data does back that up. 82% of SMEs think that AI is not for them, and only 27% of companies feel confident with AI. And then the other fact here, 95% of AI pilots don't deliver measurable impact. And measurable impact is the one that people often miss. You know, we're implementing AI, but how do we track what the actual return is? We're doing a lot of things, but actually, are we just adding more work in rather than saving time and saving resource and saving money? I did have sources for these things, but they seem to have disappeared when my agent rebuilt my slides. So I'll put them in at the end. 88% of organizations now use AI in at least one function, but only 7% have scaled AI across the organization. So scale is one of those things that is very difficult for businesses to do. I talk about the bolt-on issue that businesses face, and this comes from the dabbling phase as well, that kind of stage one where a lot of people are trying AI and finding some success, but that doesn't necessarily scale across everyone. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, trying things with varying levels of success. Those are locked down to the individual rather than being scaled out across the businesses. And also some of the things that we build, they work on a small scale, but they then don't scale when you try and apply that across everyone and across all your clients or across your business. So scale is something that is sometimes quite hard to achieve with AI. Governance we will touch on. It's another stumbling block for a lot of businesses. I will mention where you feel like you want your business to sit, and there is no right answer on a governance and a GDPR standpoint, from a data protection standpoint, from all of these things which businesses kind of get worried about. Do you want to work on the scale of flexibility and have low governance and really get started with agentic solutions and AI and just build it into the business at all costs? Or are you on the other side where you have full governance, you might have stakeholders that are in control, you might have laws, legalities around your certain business sector that tie you into thinking in a certain way and using certain platforms that mean that you can't be as flexible. I was talking to someone from the police force on Tuesday who was heavily involved in AI, that you could kind of see that there was a lot of restrictions over what they could and couldn't do. So as I promised, we'll start with the 5 stages. This is just it at a glance, and then we'll go through each of these stages one by one. We've got the dabbling stage. So when businesses start out, they start in this kind of phase. Individuals playing in silo, working on their own, trying things out, adopting maybe an LLM into some of what they do. Maybe it's start writing emails. Maybe if they're a content writer, they start helping to write content for them. Maybe you're in a data analysis sector and you're starting to use it to crunch numbers a bit easier. But everyone's doing it by themselves on their own computers locally to them. And then businesses start to move on to this awakening stage 2. So that's when leadership and everyone around them in the business starts to see the power that AI can produce in terms of early stage results, and they start to realize that this is something important, this is something that we need to move into the business, and they start to move into this awakening. And that's where at this awakening stage businesses start to ask questions. what actually is our strategy? How are we going to integrate this? Are we going to go for full transformation so we can actually integrate fully AI into what we do, rather than just have individuals dabbling at every different stage? Then we have strategy. This is where we start to introduce ideas around what are the real problems in the business? What does our adoption roadmap look like? Where do we set the line in terms of control over our data and our systems? Are we willing to be flexible on this? What tools are we going to use and adopt company-wide rather than by on an individual level? Then we move on to integration, which is kind of a follow-on step from this strategy. So thinking about human in the loop, process, infrastructure. What does the business do at a grassroots level all the way up to the top? What processes are involved in the business in order to get things done? And at what stage are we going to start to integrate AI into them? And I've got some thoughts around this as well. Some just from witnessing integration of AI into businesses, what works well when it comes to AI and what doesn't work so well? Where do I see people fall into that trap of applying AI to things where it's never quite the right fit? And the final kind of holy grail stage is transformation. So company-wide command and control, agentic solutions, we've got measurable return, everyone is using the same thing. Culturally, everyone is on the same page and ready to adopt AI, and we're ready for that next stage of creating a business model which has AI sitting alongside humans in a fully integrated manner. So, dabbling. Oh, this is one of the slides that it's rearranged. We'll come back to this one. Dabbling. So the dabbling stage is the first stage. It's the place that every business starts. You'll have one person using ChatGPT. You'll have another person using Claude. You might have developers in your business and they might be poking around at different editors. You basically got bits and pieces all over the place. It is a useful, genuinely useful place to start, because when people, if I ever speak to anyone and they're worried about all of this and they're wondering where actually do we start, the best place to start is somewhere. Get a subscription. They don't cost a lot to just get one LLM subscription and start having to play with it, start trying to find out things and figure out how it's going to work and how clever is it, so we can debunk some of those superpower myths. Start to try and understand what problems it can and can't solve. But the problem isn't necessarily the playing aspect of it, although that can be a bit of a time sink. But the problem is that these things then stay personal and private to individuals. Nothing is shared. Nothing's ever built. You'll hear people say at this stage, we're having a go, we're starting to build a couple of things, but nothing formal's been built yet. It's that type of phrasing that tends to come out. Or, oh, we are using AI, but when you ask people questions about it, it's like, oh, everyone's using their own thing. So and so in content is using it for this, that person's using it for that. So it's useful to start here, and it's where most people do start, but it often leaves information, AI systems trapped on people's computers and in individual silos. So there's a couple of risks associated that sort of hide under the fun of dabbling. We've mentioned one of them: personal, not company. So individuals are using their own AI logins rather than having something which the business itself owns. Knowledge gets trapped on one desktop. Shadow AI creeps in. You'll find a lot of people using tools that nobody's ever approved. You will always find that, regardless of how much control you try and put in place. People will always have their own tools. And if you think that there are people in your business, all people in your business are following the rules and only using Copilot, if that's your tool of choice, and aren't using ChatGPT, that's just incorrect. They'll always revert back to the various different tools. It's just what we see. And that can be really difficult and really challenging. And it's a problem because a lot of these LLMs have a way of talking to us to try and infer some level of trust, and you will start to come down after a while, and you start to think, actually, it might be okay if I just share this one sheet, or maybe you let slip a piece of personal information, or maybe it's an HR issue, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. But sooner or later, these things start to leak out onto LLMs, and it can cause real issues for businesses that are trying to be compliant and keep all of their data and information in one place. We call that shadow AI, shadow usage, where people are starting to use these tools. So yeah, with unmanaged dabbling, it's a governance issue that's just waiting to bite businesses. So most businesses quickly try and move on from this stage and then move forward with the awakening stage. So this is the light bulb moment for a lot of businesses. Almost every business, and we saw from the poll, this is true of this group today. This is where most businesses sit. This is where momentum starts to come from, but this is also where a lot of money we see gets wasted. So we need to make sure we're aware of these traps when we're starting to move into this awakening phase. Just making sure everyone can still hear me. So like I said, 2026 seemed to be the time when everyone started to wake up, but most are really struggling with knowing how to actually adopt AI. The good thing about this is that eyes are open now. There's a bit of budget behind what people are doing. There's a resolution, I think, this year to finally do something with this AI thing, and that's where momentum comes from. So that's already positive, and we're seeing that it's helpful for us because we, as a consultancy and as a business that's been involved with AI, we're starting to see people around us begin to wake up to what we've been thinking for a while. Whereas, like I said earlier, we were a bit of an early adopter at the beginning. But there are some downsides at this phase. What we often see is that there's either too much faith or too little faith going into what AI can do. So we either go into it from the dabbling stage, local on our computer, we're getting some early successes, and we're thinking, wow, this is a bit of a superpower. We need to apply this to everything. And it doesn't scale in that way as we thought it would. And so we expected way too much from the AI, or our businesses write it off as not being powerful enough. AI doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. It's not the right tool. It's all smoke and mirrors. And we see one of those two things. And that comes down to the business overall. Usually it's leadership and what they think about it. And also then, like I said, we're people businesses. We've got culture in the business. There will be a culture that runs through the business. And everyone will have their own and make their own minds up as well. And that can be really difficult with adoption if you've got certain people in the business that are just not on board with that vision and where things are going. And rightly so. I think that AI throws up a number of debates. I always like to think that businesses will go into these debates with their eyes open with their teams and talk to them. What are your fears around AI? Where do you think roles are headed in the future, in 4 years, 5 years, 10 years with AI? If it's only going to gather momentum and it's only going to get better and better, what does that mean for our business? And what does that mean for individuals within our business and their roles? We often find that we end up being almost career consultants as well, and starting to work with people to understand what that means for their career in the long term. If you're hands-on, sort of manual business, that might be a few more years away than someone who might be in a data analysis role, or someone who might be in operations or HR, where these things are going to affect their roles far quicker. But it will happen across a lot of different industries, probably sooner than people are ready for. At this adoption stage, awakening phase, we start to get really excited about AI. We start to try and move a lot of different parts, and we end up with a lot of motion, not much progress. So you'll end up stuck here if you then start to buy more subscriptions, more tools, you run lots of experiments, you're doing lots of demos, you're using some stuff on a daily basis, but not everything actually gets used. Every week there's a new shiny tool that the business brings in and tries to put on people. Stuff starts but never gets finished. AI has on its surface this theory that it's cost effective and that it's cheap and it's going to solve a lot of problems and it's going to save cost and it's not going to add cost. Early days with this stage, you could find yourself very quickly burning a lot of money, either money that trickles out through random pilots that don't go anywhere, or you've then got business deploying multiple different AI solutions back into the business. You could run up loads of AI API costs. There's various different ways that this could end up costing a lot of money if it's not controlled. And the main way that we control that at this stage is to begin to move into strategy and start to understand not just, wow, this is an amazing shiny thing, we need to bring it into the business, but why are we bringing it into the business? What problems are we actually trying to solve here through the use of AI? Or is it just the shiny thing that everyone's saying we should use, and so we're just bolting it into the business? So we need to stop playing at some point with AI and start planning, start strategizing and coming up with a plan of how we're going to integrate it. That moves us on to the third step. This is where we start to talk, assess honestly, begin to plan. If we skip this discovery and this strategy step, everything after it starts to wobble and we never actually see any progression in integrating AI into the business. So we need to make sure that we've got a deliberate plan. That starts in many different areas. It could be culturally, it could be having a look at our business objectives, it could be having conversations with people, trying to change mindset and culture. There's a huge change management piece that comes alongside AI, especially if the business is quite cold to it, like most businesses are, where we need to assess and discuss with everyone so that we can have that adoption take hold and actually stick, rather than something that just gets bolted on and then comes off again. So the random place stops. We start to treat AI like any other business decision. The mental flip is going to be everything here. So it goes from either dabbling or asking the question on where can we put AI, and starts becoming a question of what does the business actually need. This is going to be the step that requires some thinking. It's going to be the cheapest step to get right. But if you get it wrong, it could end up being really expensive down the road, because you're just going to invest in all of those tools. There's going to be a lot of time invested in coming up with solutions that no one else uses or doesn't stick or doesn't align with the business's goals. So we need to think now about all of those questions and make sure that we have some honest thinking so that we're saving money later down the line. To do that, we've got a sort of C10 framework which we deploy, which we might have heard us talk about before. I will come back onto that C10 framework. This is kind of a more simplified 5-step process for starting to think about strategy and how to properly adopt AI into the business. And we have these 5 steps. I say steps, points. First one being strategy and leadership. So is there clear ambition from leadership? Is there a budget that's being put behind AI? Is it just scattered pet projects? And then skills and culture. Do we have people in the team at the moment that are able to adopt it, or do we need to do training? Do they have the time? Do they have the appetite to work differently and think differently and employ AI alongside their day jobs? Data and technology. Can you access the data? Can the AI access the data? Can you connect your data into core systems? Is it all structured properly. Most businesses don't have data that is well enough structured for AI to just be plugged into it. Microsoft and Copilot probably doing a lot of work considering where they are in the market with Microsoft 365, etc., actually building in solutions to those filing systems, but not everyone wants to use Copilot. We don't use Copilot because it's quite restrictive in other ways. So then we have to think about data. Where is it held? Is it on a centralized database? Is it on the cloud? Where are your servers? How is it structured so that AI can read it and understand it? And how much data are we going to give away? Process and operations. So how well do you know your workflows and your operations? Are they stable? Are you able to then understand if you've got a process in mind that for a certain thing, 10-step process, if it's all laid out and clear and documented and everyone follows that process, it's much easier then to say we're going to take AI and we're going to plug it into steps 3 to 7 of this process. And you can really drill down on where AI is going to be put into that mix. Whereas if operations and process are just kind of muddled through, it can be much more difficult to adopt AI. And then we've got governance and risk. So how do you manage data? What's your security like, or what kind of accountability do you have in place at the moment? What kind of ethics does the business have? How is that going to hold back AI in its deployment? So what you can start to do is take these 5 elements and just score them 1 to 5, 5 being really good, 1 being needs a lot of work, and then start to assess where the strategy investment needs to be first in order to get ready for adoption of AI. There are times where people get stuck on this strategy bit and don't actually ship anything. You can have situations where there's a lot of planning, almost too much planning, and then people get stuck on having a roadmap and a steering group and a strategy deck and lots of different meetings. And then months on from that, nothing actually happens because we don't know how to get to that next stage of actually beginning to build stuff and integrate stuff properly. That's why having a AI lead, someone with the skills and the know-how and the time to actually invest in what happens next is really useful, because that person can then drive forward with this project, take everyone along with them. I don't know if I've put this here, but having one small thing to pilot and ship is almost always going to be having a really granular, full strategic plan for implementation, and then absolutely nothing happens with it. Small is always better with AI because of the massive potential AI could have and the implications of AI on business. Is a tendency to want to think big and have no end goal in mind with how you're going to integrate AI. So winding that back and having something which you can start to pilot, see if it scales, can often be much more effective. It brings people on board, they start to see the benefit of it, and then actually you can build out from there and start to employ more things as you go through. And this moves us on to integration. This is where AI truly stops being a personal dabbling type thing and starts becoming part of the business. So by this point, what you should probably have is people that have built genuinely useful skills or prompts. They may still at this point live on people's machines. One person might have built something genuinely incredible and nobody else ever knows about it or touches it. So integration at this point is all about making it the companies, not the persons. So any skills that you've got, any standards, any examples which are in one place that the team then need to adopt, you can bring that all in centrally rather than having them on people's computers. This is where human in the loop processes get built and rolled out by departments. So you will have processes in place. You will be able to identify what that process is, and then you will be able to identify the start and the stop for where AI gets involved. It could be the human does a little bit of creativity first in terms of building creative, writing content, doing some data analysis. Step 1, 2, 3. They then hand off that task to an AI agent that does steps 4, 5, 6, 7, and then they get it back at the end. And then the human can then check the data, make sure it's right, and then process it and pass it along. So it's about understanding what skills everyone's got, centralizing those skills into one place so everyone can see them and share them, and then understanding business process and figuring out where AI slots into those processes. Scale, I've mentioned a couple of times. This is where a lot of businesses tend to stall. When it works with one person and it works on their local computer, and then you bring it into the wider business and it stalls and it doesn't work in the real world. We find a lot of pilots for AI, be it skills or projects or data analysis, anything at all. The pilot often works really well, and one person is able to use that skill quite effectively, and then the business adopts it or you ship it to clients, and the real life gives you none of the clean data that a project has when you're in pilot stage. Things break, scaffolding changes, owners change and don't quite know how to use that automation. And the thing that worked well in pilot then doesn't quite work so well in the real world. So it's really important that you scale things slowly and make sure that it works on a sliding scale before it goes out full market shipped. When we talk about transformation, we're starting to think about how the organization creates and delivers value. So it really aligns these four things into the mix. So we've got to think about strategy. What strategy have we got in the business to adopt AI? People, what technology are we going to deploy? What processes have we got in the business? And we build that all on top of the underpinning goal for the organization or the business. So what is our business goal? What are we trying to achieve this year? And how can AI assist us in getting to that goal, rather than just bolting AI on and hoping that it assists us with getting to whatever our goal is? Underpinning all of this are going to be questions, some of which I've touched on already. Culture, what are the shared attributes, habits of the team? Every business has its culture. We want to make sure that we can adopt a culture which brings in AI in a way that is sticky, so that once everyone's on board with the vision, they know what the plan is, and they're able to adopt it and bring it in rather than reject it or not use it. Change management, we need to make sure that we're aware of that shift, seeing problems that might exist in the future, not just hoping that people will keep up with it and people will adopt these changes, but actually working with and discussing with people how to adopt AI in their roles and how AI is being adopted for the business as well. And then we've got ethics around responsibility, data, fairness, trust around AI. And transformation also involves sharing things, having an audit trail, making sure that if you have a good prompt or a really good agent that someone's built, or a solution or a skill, that it's centralized and it's in one library that everyone else can use as well, and that people are trained on how to find those solutions and deploy them themselves. We use GitHub for this. And that was a real learning curve for us, because GitHub is a place then where we can share agents and solutions that others have built. It's centrally, and then others can download them and use them too, rather than them being local on people's computers. So the line really between dabbling and moving forward is three with strategy. So the conversation starts with a discussion over what are we trying to achieve here? What are our goals? How can AI assist with our goals? We're trying to surface problems and challenges and issues that the business has, and then we're starting to understand the data aspect of it, the people aspect of it, the culture, all of these different elements, and then asking questions about it and working with people on this journey to have a strategy to properly deploy AI across the business, rather than and move away from that stage of dabbling and playing with AI, which is useful initially. But ultimately, the business is the one that needs to own the compliance and the process, and what LLMs are we using, what skills are we developing, how are we going to share those skills. All of these things need to become central things rather than individual decisions. I said I wanted to talk about a couple of things I've noticed are quite common issues and stumbling blocks when businesses try and adopt AI. The first one is the bolt-on concept, whereby there's this renewed energy to want to incorporate AI into what the business does. And so what it decides to do is say, we're going to use Copilot, and Copilot's now the tool of choice. And then rather than go through that strategic integration process, they just sort of ship it onto the team, and then people don't really know where to start with it. And it just becomes a mess. Some people use it, some people don't use it. It costs the business money. You get people, again, still working in silos, trying to figure it out. It often creates more work than it solves, because people then go down rabbit holes trying to work with this thing and figure out what it does for them, rather than being properly integrated into the business processes at a foundational level, and working with people to say, this is what we're bringing in, and this is specifically how it's going to help solve certain challenges that exist. We've talked about the 5 steps. This is a 10-step C10 framework that we produce. So we've got booklets that are available on our website that you can download that take you through each one of these steps and allow you to focus one thing at a time and come up with a strategy for how you're going to deploy AI into the business. It starts with challenges. So when we think about challenges, and this comes back to kind of everything that we've discussed, the bolt-on element of it, the dabbling stuff. When we go to businesses and we start talking about AI and trying to uncover what they've done so far and how AI can assist the business, we actually start off with a process of consultation. We run sessions with team members, and we take AI completely out of the picture because it almost distracts from what AI is there to solve. And we start asking questions around, what are the crap, basically, jobs that you don't like doing, but you have to do as part of your role? What are the bottlenecks in the business? We do this for the leadership team, and we do this with individuals as well. What are the common mistakes? Human error happens all the time in business. What are the ones that constantly affect the business? We're trying to surface problems and challenges that exist throughout the business, that exist throughout any business. And you'll find some really interesting things that you wouldn't necessarily have thought up initially. And then what we can do once we have those challenges is we can then say, what can we build? What AI can we develop that can help assist with those challenges, rather than just chuck AI on top of everything and expect AI to solve stuff as it goes. We're actually surfacing those problems first. And we'll go through each of these with our clients' company, the operations, the workflows, the customers, your customers. How can we assist with making the customer journey smoother, be it anything from email comms through to website, through to chat bots, through to voice bots, all of these different elements. to assist with customers. Communication, outreach, email, conversational marketing, all of these different things. So this is your marketing. Content creation, specific channel marketing, AI solutions. You have to start to think about at some point API connections. If you've got data in your business and you want AI to assist you, you're going to have to get AI talking to APIs and credentials to actually bring that data in to analyze it. So there's a conversation around connections and APIs. How do we control it and how do we monitor it? What are the costs involved? And are we making sure that we're compliant, we're secure, data is protected, and where do we sit on that compliance line? So we break it down into these 10 sections, and we work at that strategy phase. We work through all these things and we start to uncover more stuff around how the business can actually adopt AI properly into its model. I talked about control, and I talked about data and GDPR and confidentiality and compliance. There is no right answer here on where the business sits. It's a decision that every business has to come to at some point or another, whether they're going to hand over more control to AI and more data to AI, or less control to AI and keep more back. And depending on where you sit on this scale of hand over everything to hand over nothing, depends on what tool you can use, how much you use it, how much of the business operations and the process can be taken over by AI. Because the more control you give to AI, the less control the business has in theory, and the more data the AI has as well. Some businesses are completely locked down and can only use certain tools. You will find on this side where you're under heavy compliance controls, GDPR is super important, and you're more restricted, you will find people often sit on something like Copilot for their solutions. I know that the police, from talking on Tuesday, are heavy Copilot agentic users, because Copilot is trusted, it's built into Microsoft, there's security measures there, their data and filing already lives on Microsoft 365, and so it's not that much of a step to then deploy Copilot in. Whereas if you're on this side, you're more flexible in the solutions that you can build. You can apply AI to more things because you're less concerned over how much data gets sent across to AI. So you can be much more flexible, you get much more power out of it, and AI can do more things as a result. So you have to decide quite early on where you sit on this scale, and then you need to find the solution that fits best for your business. And it is Wild West at the moment, and I've seen all sorts. Some people are totally on the left-hand side. They don't care as long as it improves efficiency. I won't name any names, but they're quite happy to deploy AI across everything and just speed things up. And they get amazing results out of it. Some of the things you can do if you're less keen on the compliance side and you just want to push forward and get results. Whereas I've also seen people that are completely on this side of the scale, and it really slows things down. It means they can't adopt things nearly as fast. Everything has to get sign off. Nothing can go through without it having the proper procedures in place. And AI at the moment is just, it's not always obvious how to be compliant with some of these LLM models. Then they obscure sometimes how they train their models or what they do with the data, all these types of things. You can stay in control, so you can use APIs, not logins. That's going to mean that you're more secure. If you want to, and you've got technical ability and know-how, you can keep it completely in-house. So you can run your own open source AI models internally on your own servers that will keep all of the information within the business, and then you can be more flexible and know that the data is secure as well. It's a more technical solution. Some people will deploy it and then they're able to have the best of both worlds. But it does come with cost, servers, space, all the rest of it that comes with this. And as always, when it comes to compliance and sensitive data, read the terms, make sure that you know with the LLM model that you decide to deploy in the business, what arrangements are in place for data security, how does it train its models, make sure that there's no chance that data is going to leak anywhere or get out into the market. We've talked about this one. This is about understanding the problem before the solution. AI is usually where people start, and I see AI as the solution to a problem that people haven't uncovered yet. So starting with that problem and just asking the question of, where does our business currently struggle? What are our bottlenecks? And where are we good that we don't need AI put in place? And then focus on where the bottlenecks are before just trying to apply AI to everything. It will work so much smoother. So more on that, where do the hours go at the moment? What are the jobs that nobody wants or nobody likes? Where do mistakes creep into our workflows? Those are perfect examples for things that AI can assist you with. Chase the quick wins works in so many different ways. Once you have unearthed the problems and the bottlenecks that exist in the business, you will see some really quick wins, and those quick wins are great because they're going to be the highest value wins for you. They're hopefully going to be the lowest effort. They're going to help build momentum into the business. They're also going to be a proof point for others that are looking inwards at the projects that are currently underway and wondering whether AI is going to be effective and of value. And so having those quick wins are really useful because it proves the theory. It starts getting some things underway, and then you can start to build out from there. Then there are some things which you just want to leave and walk away from. There's a big tendency to want to implement AI into absolutely everything as part of a whole strategy, and some things work really well, some things don't. And if there was some thought just gone into, where are we great already? Where do we want to keep a human touch in place? And don't let AI infect those areas. You'll be that much more effective, because there are certain things that you don't want AI to be involved with. To try and uncover that in a bit more detail and what areas AI is better at and worse at, the easiest, most simplest way of doing that is to come up with what tasks are quantifiable and what tasks are tacit, because tacit tasks are a lot harder. So when you think of quantifiable, think of data entry, data sorting, drafting, reporting, first pass data analysis. AI slots into those tasks super efficiently and super easily and can get immediate results and can be really good at it. Anything which is tacit, so I'm talking about things that require human intuition, human judgment, relationship building. So it might be customer related, it might be something related to taste. Those things are really hard, sometimes impossible, not always, to hand over cleanly and easily to an AI agent. So these things are more important to keep human, or keep a human in charge of that process. So there may be elements of that process which AI can pick up. It might be if you're a customer service rep, you still want the human on the front line talking to the customers, but actually managing the support requests, drafting first draft emails so that the human can then read those, add a human touch to it, and then send that out. Those are the kind of working alongside AI, rather than just handing over all of your client services or customer services to AI and expecting to get the job done, because you're going to miss out on that human touch. I'm going to be about 10 minutes over. I'm going to keep going with the recording, and then we'll be able to send this out afterwards. So if anyone has to go, I apologize. We'll send the recording out to you afterwards, and you'll be able to catch up there. So apologies, I'm going to run over a bit. We've got a few people saying they have to drop out. We'll keep going. Just as long as this is useful, we'll keep on going with it. I've talked a bit about human in the loop. This comes back to the theory of understanding process properly and operations in the strategy stage. If you've got really good process, detailed out that everyone knows and they follow every time. I've got an advertising background, but also an operations background. So I know that one of the things that we do in operations sometimes is we say, if you have a process, it needs to be written in 10 steps or less. If you can write, and every process should be like that. So step one, receive a support request from a client. Step two, hands it across to this person, and you go through the 10 steps. Most processes in business, you should have documented out, well documented, something that everyone can follow. It's not always going to be the McDonald's case of literally do this and then do that, but there should be some documented process in place. If you've got that, it's super handy when it comes to AI, because when you start to go through the process of integrating AI as a strategy into various different processes, you can look at those 10 steps and you can say, how are we going to keep human in the loop? And where are we going to hand over to an AI agent? And similar to the example I gave earlier, step 1 to 3, we're framing the job. So that's something that is going to require those tacit skills, that judgment, something that a human needs to do. So step 1 to 3 in this process, we're keeping human. But then step 4 to 7, which is the heavy lifting, repetitive, the one that takes all the time, it could be drafting, sorting, processing, whatever it might be, that's what the part of this process we're going to hand over to an AI agent. And then once it's done that part of the job for me, we then take it back and the human finishes that process off. They review the copy, they review and approve whatever the AI has produced, and then they take it forward. And that's very different from a business or business leadership just saying, we're going to deploy AI and it's going to go across every different job and across everything, and it's going to handle all 10 steps. It's just doomed for failure. This smaller subset, quick win that keeps the human in the loop and also optimizes things is a much healthier way of doing things, and it shows value and purpose. And then over time, once people get comfortable with it, it might be that it takes steps 3. There's another step in here, or maybe you could actually do a pilot where the AI that's already doing part of the job then does more of it. Maybe can it do all of the job? Does it want to? Do we want it to? These are all questions that we can ask. Tying it back to return on revenue, return on investment is something we get asked a lot, and it is incredibly difficult to do. The reasons why you would deploy AI come down to one of 3 things, really. Can we do things quicker? Can we do things cheaper? Or can we do things more accurately than a human can do it? And that is a question that we always ask. Once we surface the problems, we then apply this logic to those things. And if AI can't solve one of these challenges, it's probably not worth putting AI in. And then alongside these problems that we've surfaced, we can then also ask the question of how do we measure the return on it? In theory, it's super simple, because what we can do is say that we've got a task, and it's you have a meeting with all your client service team, and they say we waste 4 hours a day managing the ticket requests rather than actually talking to clients or customers. Then you've got an immediate benefit there from, if we can solve this challenge, our customer service team can then spend more of their time doing what they're here to do, which is talking to customers. So how do we solve that challenge? And actually with those 4 hours, what we can then do is say, what is your average, this is off the top of my head, but one way of measuring return could be, what is your average wage bill? And if you can break that down even annually, and then by month, and then by week, and then by day, then by hour, and you can put a wage cost associated to how much time that's taking at the moment to do, and then maybe you put a biz ops cost on top of it as well, then you can assign at least a loose value to, or cost to, what that problem is costing you at the moment as a business. And then if you could speed that up and have that completely automated, that becomes part of your return on investment calculation, because you're then taking that job away from people and they're able to do other things, and the boring side of the job AI can do, and it's saving this much time and therefore this much money. It's worth doing some kind of analysis into return on investment, because at some stage the question will be asked rightly by someone in the business: we've been working on AI for 6 months, 12 months. What are the actual savings that we've made? What is the return that we've made here? Have we actually improved anything? And at that point, you don't want to be turning around and saying, we don't know, but it feels smarter, but we actually don't know if we are more efficient or any better. So having an answer to those questions is really, really useful. It's useful for us as an agency that's going in and talking about these things, but it's also useful for us when we're talking to stakeholders, and that could be anyone from leadership through to team members who have had AI put into their roles, sometimes uncertain whether it's going to be useful or not, or successful or not, and they want to have confidence that if they're going to take the time and the effort to adopt AI, that it's going to be useful and it's actually improving things. There's a cost to doing the wrong thing. Rabbit holes on AI, once you start building, if the business goes down the rabbit hole of doing the wrong thing, it can take a lot of cost and a lot of effort, weekends. Burnout is a factor that can exist. So there is a real cost in building things, but especially building the wrong thing. It can take a lot of attention away from the business. That's why we need to close down this idea of shiny thing syndrome and look at all the wonderful things AI could do. Let's bring them all in, because you're going to end up burning a lot of budget. It's much better to surface problems and approach those problems with AI solutions than just trying to transform all the business immediately with AI. There's some readiness checks here. I'm not going to go through them, but we need to make sure that we're not falling into common failure patterns, make sure that there's a budget in place, make sure that we're not just adopting AI because it's the cool thing to do and someone is really good at AI and look at all the apps they've built and all the reporting platforms, but no one actually adopts it, and it's just wasting a lot of time and a lot of budget. So have an honest baseline, find the gaps, find the budget, don't rush into anything, and go in with clarity rather than just we need to deploy AI. Infrastructure is the boring bit no one wants to talk about, but it's important. Where is your data being stored at the moment? Where are you going to share it? Where are the skills kept? I mentioned GitHub earlier, which is a really great place to start for sharing things like skills and AI solutions. Then how do you evolve it? How do people add to that over time? And how do you then share that back in? That comes from technology, GitHub, etc., but it also comes from communication and talking to the team and having these meetings in place so that you can review and discuss what worked well, what's evolving, what have you built that we can share with others. Like most problems in a lot of businesses, communication will solve it, just getting together and discussing these things. People need to be talked to. They're going to be a blocker for AI adoption. There's going to be job worry. A lot of it's going to go unspoken. We need to be clear when we're integrating AI as to why it's here and how it's going to work, and the fact that it's a collaborator, it's not a replacement. I do not believe that AI is here to replace jobs. I'm a firm believer that AI is here to stop us from having to do the really annoying stuff that gets us away from what we trained in and the thing that we're here to do in business. And I think that everyone has those really rubbish jobs that they'd rather not do. I think AI should be here to pick those things up. Unfortunately, what has happened to date with AI is that actually it's been pointed at the wrong areas. It seemed to me to be that as soon as AI became powerful, people were applying it to content production and creative assets and all the things that these tacit jobs that humans are best at. And that seemed misplaced to me. We should be freeing humans up to do those things by giving AI the rubbish jobs, and it seems to be the wrong way around at the moment. So if you can get people on board with that and starting to understand that, then I think you'll be onto a winner. If you can bring people on side, it helps with culture, it helps with adoption, it helps with everything. Get hands-on, do peer-led group sessions, build out with people, train them, show them, do show and tells. We do that quite often, probably not often enough, but we're trying to do that more now. Bring people up and get people talking about it. We've talked about human in the loop. There is a growing, as we move towards, so human in the loop involves automation, whereby, like we mentioned earlier, you've got 10-step process. Step 1, 2, 3 human, 4, 5, 6, 7 AI. That's human in the loop. You're handing stuff off, you're getting stuff back. We're now moving towards human in the mix, which is slightly different. This is where, rather than handing something over to AI and getting something back, we're evolving and adapting and iterating alongside AI, rather than this clear start stop. This is where agentic AI, which we're now adopting, starts to come into it, because we're not just working in clear gated parameters with AI, but rather we're iterating alongside it, and we're using it as a partner, not just that checkpoint with AI. I'm not going to dwell on this point. There's a quote here from Accenture, but it's important that humans keep parts of the role that are tacit and are best geared towards humans, because there's things that AI just can't do. There's problems that exist in the world that AI can't even recognize, because it just doesn't have the human experience that we have. So this is where slowing down, stopping, and thinking about where AI is going to be integrated gets you around this, because otherwise you end up trying to apply AI to everything, and it's going to work to the detriment of the business. Give AI a lead, but also make sure that you don't let AI run away with one person. Again, this comes back to communication and making sure that everyone works together. You do want someone that's central and driving change, but be careful that that person doesn't then shoot off and iterate and disrupt a lot of things, but the rest of the team can't keep up, and therefore it doesn't scale, and therefore it doesn't work for the business. It actually works against the business. The adoption of AI needs to work at the rate of the slowest person in the business. So if you can get that person that is maybe less technical, less understanding of how AI is going to be adopted into the business, especially within SMEs, this is a lot easier. You can work with that person, and then everyone's on board with it. Don't just look at the person that's the most technical and the most capable of creating AI solutions, and then using that person as the benchmark, because they're going to be a year ahead of everyone else in terms of adoption. We've mentioned this, but again, this is a people problem as much as it is a technology problem. People are willing to adopt AI despite the fears that exist. I don't think anyone, at least that I've encountered, doesn't believe that AI is going to affect their role or how they do things, and they want to learn and they want to adopt these things. They just want to make sure it's done in an ethical way that is actually going to help them and support them in their growth and in their roles. So it is a people problem as much as it is technical. It is a transformation challenge. It is a business change that needs to involve everyone. And so talking about it, talking about job role changes, being honest with people, it's going to help make sure that you get buy-in at every level, rather than getting constant kickback. I'll leave this as my final slide because we are over, and there was just some wrap-up slides anyway. There's always a question of build it or buy it off the shelf, or a hybrid approach. We take on a hybrid approach because there are some things which are off the shelf that are just better. What you will find as you get more involved with agentic and AI is that you start asking questions around systems and tools and SaaS products that you've built into your business, and ask, well, actually, do we need to buy that or rent that? or can we build that ourselves and bring that in? And it's always going to be this question of, do we go and find a SaaS solution, an AI agent off the shelf and just bring it into the business, or do we find an LLM that can build this for us? Everything these days can be replicated and built. I don't believe it's a technology barrier anymore for someone to vibe code a CRM system in a weekend or a project management tool. Most of that stuff is within the grasp of most people now. The problem becomes not can you build it, but once you've built it, you're then responsible for making sure there's no downtime, iterating on it. If there's a problem that someone has, especially if you're selling this as a product externally, you're now responsible for the development and the maintenance of that product. And so the trade-off is, if I rent a SaaS tool from a company that provider, I have to work within their workflow and their tool and what they decide is acceptable as a template tool. And so that is restricting. I can build my own, but then if the site goes down, I've got to be the one that's there to fix it. I've got to pay the API costs. I've got to build it, maintain it, rather than firing up my email and sending a angry message to someone saying the site's gone down. Why is that? So there are trade-offs to both, and they have to be evaluated to decide: are you going to build, or are you just going to buy something off the shelf that already works? Okay, right. Let me stop sharing. We have gone way over. We've got 20 people left, so I'm really sorry we went over, but it's useful to just keep going if we're halfway through. Presentation is great. It would be really helpful to have a live practical example to show us live cases of how AI has facilitated a great return on investment. What I can show, if I've got it, is just an example of one way we can do that. AI adoption, if I can remember. Yeah, this was quite theoretical today. We actually do, on the Thursday AI Club, we go into more practical stuff and talk around. Yeah, I mean, one of the big questions when you're just looking at this is, okay, you're talking a lot about AI, but actually when it comes down to integrating AI and talking about agents and solutions, tangibly, what does that look like? What does an AI agent do? What is an AI agent? How are we actually going to incorporate in? And it's a massive spectrum of different solutions that could be deployed in place. And it can get quite confusing. I mean, at its foundational level, you're talking about LLMs and Claude and ChatGPT, and then getting involved with projects and co-work and all the tools that they provide to be able to do things better and faster. But then we move on from that and we start to talk about autonomous solutions and how to build out other things. These are all things that go into the AI Club. There is a solution to every problem. The question becomes, have you surfaced the problem first, and do you want the solution? I could completely automate, or we could, as a business, as an agency, completely automate most businesses' operations now, looking at business operations and how they work. You could do that. The question is, do you want to do that? And the answer is always no. And so then if the answer is no, the question becomes, what part of the business do you want to automate through AI? And that's where we get into the really interesting stuff and the stuff that truly saves businesses time without completely removing what makes the business out of the business. I'll try and find an example, but it might be that I'm this one might work. Oh, okay, this is just a template. Let me show you this example. This has got no live data in it, sorry, so it's more practical. It's more theoretical, sorry. So I use this sheet quite often on a very early stage. I hope you can see that. Might be a bit easier there. to go into businesses and just start to ask the question and try and find a return on investment. And this is BMAT maths, first stage. The important thing that we do here with this sheet, and it's super simple, I can share a version with you now in the handouts, is that we surface, this is the sheet we use to surface problems. So we'll go through every team, so it could be the sales team, and we say to the team, give me your challenges, your problems, your bottlenecks, stuff that is difficult to do or the business struggles with. I've got 2 examples here. Email take a long time to sift through. Central email system, miss a lot of things. Okay, and then people start to add their ideas in, loads of them. Doesn't matter whether it's AI or not. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about ideas. Once we get those back, we can then start to do a couple of things. We can break that process down into steps. So if you've got a bottleneck, what actually is the process around that bottleneck? And we just write that out in human steps. Once we've got that down, we can then start to say, actually, these steps here we can automate. And then once we do that, as we start to build these ideas, we can then start to say, what's the current time investment that you spend on that job or that thing? How much can we ascertain a cost per hour? How much, from salary costs to all other costs? And if you can get those 2 things, you can assign a least value to the project. In this case, if it costs us £40 an hour and the time investment is 50 hours, and you've got a project value there of £2,000, and then if you start to work through that, you'll have 50, 60 different ideas all down here, or with different project values, and then we can start to rank them. How difficult is this going to be to automate? How much time saved and how much return on investment are we going to get? Could be a 5. How much can we improve this process by implementing AI? And that could be a 5 as well. And then we get an automation viability score. And then we can rank these by score. And then the one with the highest scores, those are your easy wins, your quick wins that you can then go and automate. And then over time, you can work down that list and start to automate more and more. I haven't got a live sheet at the moment, but I will share this in the handouts if that's useful for anyone to take back to their teams and actually deploy. Let me copy that. GitHub isn't one that I'm familiar with. Any other platforms you use as an agency or LLMs that you prefer? GitHub I wasn't familiar with. I'm not a developer, and some of the things I've built amaze me, to be honest. Not being a developer, not having a background in APIs or coding or JSON or SQL or any things I've learned over the last 12 months where Claude Code really started to pick up, which is the second part of your question. But I've all learned from using these tools and sort of picked up knowledge as I've gone. But the things that you can build and the solutions once you get into it is truly incredible and will make a tangible difference to businesses if it's employed in the right way. So GitHub I wasn't really familiar with, but I've become familiar with because as we start to build AI solutions, we needed a way to share those solutions across the team. And so me being a non-developer, my immediate reaction was, I will share solutions in Microsoft 365. But you encounter problems with doing that, version control, that kind of thing. And this is where I say I'm not a developer, because developers would instantly say, you need GitHub for that. So we've kind of reverse engineered that and gone back and said, oh, GitHub's the right solution for us. And it is a really good solution when you get to the point of, let's say you're building skills for Claude and you want to share those skills with other people. GitHub can be really good for that. And you'll learn these things as you go along. And I always say, if you're struggling or you don't know where to start, the LLM is the best place to start. I want to build a new skill out. Can you tell me what skills are? Go to Claude and ask that question, and it'll start helping you and taking you along that journey. Or you can employ someone like us to come and do the consultancy piece, or you can join the webinars and learn more. That's how we all start. In terms of LLM, I prefer all rounder, it's got to be Claude. Claude Code especially has just come on so far from all other models at the moment. Claude Code, which you get as part of a £20 subscription, monthly subscription, is incredibly powerful. And Claude is better for writing skills. It's better for data analysis. I'm able to put some quite heavy data sheets now. You're talking about businesses with 10 million, SMEs with 10 million in monthly revenue. So you can imagine the amount of SKUs they sell, the amount of data in those sheets. We can crunch that data and understand that data in completely different ways now. And a year ago, it would have had no hope of doing that. Now it's able to run its own Python scripts and really interrogate data to get really good answers back. So Claude is what I say every time to most people. Claude is by far the best for me. I still have a ChatGPT subscription. It's just my home. It's what I've always used. And this comes back to that shadow usage thing. We have Claude throughout the business, but even I still use ChatGPT for your everyday stuff. So that lives on my phone. I've always had a subscription. I probably will for the foreseeable future. But if someone was to ask me, Claude is the go-to one. I'm going to share this sheet now. So there's a discovery document that you can take and implement. It will require some editing. Please, I don't believe this is editable as a guest. Please download it and make a copy if you can edit it, because this is just a template and you don't want to be sharing things with other people, but it's there if you would like to use it. Right, I'm going to call it there. I'm going to stop the recording.